So the White Lotus season 3 just ended this past Sunday, and I thought it would be fun to make a tier list ranking all of the characters from my least favorite to my favorite. And stick around towards the end of this video because I'm going to pick one character that I would like to see their story be continued in season 4. So stick around to the end to see who that character may be. So before we get into all the characters and breaking them down, just to explain my system here, obviously you have a S, which I call the elite class. All my little subtitles are kind of correlating to like a high-end hotel. So S being the top of the top, my favorite characters. A being like, they're really good characters. I had fun moments with them. I like their stories, but they're not quite the best of the best. B being like a silver club, being like, they were fun. They had some fun moments every now and then. I like the actor, but their story maybe didn't fully feel fleshed out for me. Then that brings us to C, which is the bronze club, which is basically like, I like the actor, but they didn't really move the needle for me. They had a moment every now and then, but they were just not the best or memorable. And then that brings us to the D, which is I put free trial, which is like, why are you even here? And again, this is no disrespect to the actors, but maybe they felt underwritten or they didn't really do anything at all for me an entire season. So that's the system. With that said, let's get into the actual characters. And the first character on our list here happens to be Jacqueline Lemon, who we know is the celebrity of the friend group, and she paid for the vacation. So for that alone, you know, if she didn't pay for it, we wouldn't have got our characters. So for that alone, that puts her in a certain class. But I liked her. I was hoping for a little bit more, like them exploring her relationship with her husband Harrison. Didn't really go anywhere. I thought the season was going to maybe explore what's going on with her show. Did she go on vacation because her show's on break, or is it canceled? Is it going to be canceled? Is she going through like a Hollywood crisis in her life, like she can't find her spot in Hollywood? And then also, I'll talk about it later with another character, but I thought it was going to be like another, like an offshoot. Like I thought that maybe Jackie was going to meet up with another character, as we know with Valentine, but on a sense of like connecting to another character. So with all that said, I'm going to go with, for me, Jackie's going to go on the C list. Again, nothing bad, but just didn't really do a ton of stuff with the character. But again, the acting was fine. But again, she's in the C list for me. So that brings us to Belinda, who we, of course, know is a character that returned all the way back from season 1. Her and her relationship with Tanya didn't work out in her favor. And now she's back. She is in Thailand. She was training with Peng Choi, who we'll talk about here in a second. I like Belinda. I like the character a lot. I like that she has this opportunity to, number one, have a little romantic situation going on. Stella got her groove back essentially because she had a lot of stuff going on, as she mentioned to Peng Chai earlier in the season. The thing that really sold me was just seeing her taking that money, getting that money to open up her shop. And we'll talk about her relationship with her son later. But I really like Belinda. I like the actress, and I like that she got some people in my comment section when I did the breakdown said it was kind of karma. Again, I don't really feel like Tanya owed her anything, and also I don't feel like she owed Peng Chai, and we'll talk about him later as far as opening a business with him. But I really enjoy Belinda. I would say I enjoyed her more this season than I did with her in season 1. And she was a lot of fun, and who knows, maybe she can return, and we'll save that for the last. So our next character is Piper, character that I was intrigued by at the start. Like, oh, okay, this seems like a rich girl who wants to kind of break out of her shell and mean something to the world or offer something more to the world than just being rich and privileged. So I was intrigued, but then as the season kind of went along, it's just like she just figured out that she wasn't built for that life. She didn't like the food at the monastery. She didn't like the sleeping arrangement. She didn't really have that enlightenment like we initially thought that she did. So it started off interesting, but then once we got to the end, she only kind of served the purpose of really fulfilling Timothy's storyline as far as him not having faith in his family. So I'm going to go with Piper Ratliff. She's going to go in that C class bronze club. Started off interesting, but just didn't really stick the landing for me when it came to the end of that arc for that character. Alrighty, so now we have another one of our friend groups, and that is Kate. Now, Kate is someone that was the glue of the friendship, right? And she had her moment. I can't remember the episode, but when she talked about, I just think it was so funny when she was talking about her religion and her going to church every Sunday, but also who she voted for. That to me was probably the standout moment for her, like her biggest monologue, her biggest standout moment for me. But I'm okay with that. Like, I feel like she kept the friend group stable, and she wasn't as dysfunctional as the other ones. And also, she was the one that was like the designated driver when they went out to the club with the Russians. So I got to give it up to Kate. She didn't do anything terrible. She didn't do anything crazy, but I'm going to Am I gonna? Yeah, I'm gonna put her in the B club. I'm gonna say she's our first Silver Club member, kept the friends at least at bay, right? Which, speaking of the friends, wrapping up their group, we have Lori. She's next, and I'm gonna be full transparency. I'm a huge Carrie Coon fan. So when I'm about to say now, I don't want to say take it with a grain of salt, but I am a huge fan of her as an actress. But out of the friend group, to me, she got the most to do. She got the best arc of the three characters. Initially, when we first met her, alluded to it, she drank a lot. She didn't really have that much going on with her back home in New York with her job, didn't get the promotion. Her and her relationship with her daughter seems to be kind of, I don't want to say dysfunctional, but coming off of that divorce that was mentioned earlier in the season. And I'm like, okay, you got Carrie Coon. Is that all we're gonna do with her? But as the season went on, we saw her dysfunctional relationship going on with Jacqueline, and we saw, speaking of getting the groove back, we saw her hooking up with Alexi, which was a really dangerous and stupid thing to do that could have turned out really bad. She got smacked a couple times in the face. But again, if you see my breakdown, I thought the conclusion of the friend group wasn't as satisfying as I wanted it to be, but I thought at the end of the day, Lori brought her A game, and she was one of the best characters to me in this season. I'm going to put her in that A. We haven't hit the S class quite yet, but Lori was definitely someone I thoroughly enjoyed. And again, shout out to Carrie Coon, one of my favorite actresses working in Hollywood. All right, so moving on to Papa Timothy, who was just going through it. This past season, when you look at all the fathers from all the other previous seasons, whether it be Mark or it be Dominic, Timothy has to be the worst father of all three fathers that we've gotten so far in this series for multiple reasons, but one big reason being that he wanted to take out his whole family. Now, Jason Isaacs, wonderful actor. I will say I was kind of getting a little bored with him in the middle of the season because he was just, in a comatose for most of the season. But there is things that I do appreciate from that performance because, if you've seen enough movies and shows, when people are under the influence, sometimes they play it over the top. It's too big. It's not really realistic, or they kind of underplay it. I think him being comatose and being obviously going what's in his head with all the stuff going on back home and trying to be that foundation of his family, the protector of his family. I thought Jason did a really good job of really giving us a little bit of nuance, even though he was not doing that much because he was either sleeping or popping pills. But neither here nor there. I thought his arc was really interesting to see, where we first meet him in episode 1, very confident. This is my family. I run this, this ship and whatnot. I'm the big dog. And then to see him kind of lose all that ego as he found out the stuff that's going on back home. And then to see him make that really horrible. I mean, he was dumb. He did some dumb stuff with leaving the poison in the blender. And then obviously, when we'll talk about Lachlan later, but again, he is the worst dad of the White Lotus so far. But I think Jason was doing some really interesting things. So I'm going to put him in the Silver Club, even though, like I said, there was that portion of the season where it's just like, come on, can we do something different? Can we maybe switch it up a little bit? But I liked where they put him at the end of the season, with him on the boat, looking at the water and just being like, I got to figure this out. I got to come and face my demons head on.
Oh, coconut milk's off. The coconut milk is off. Okay, the coconut milk is off.
Let's talk about Victoria, who was essentially, in my eyes, Parker Posey, big fan of hers, growing up in the 90s, seeing a lot of the stuff that she's been in and seeing her getting her flowers, essentially, at least to a newer generation. She was great. She was the comedic relief of this. All these characters have funny moments, but she was the funniest, right? In my mind, she's kind of like the Jennifer Coolidge of this season, kind of the Tanya in a way, or Molly from season 1, right?
The next year. You want to live in Taiwan?
I really thought that she was so good in the role because, again, you can play this character a certain way where it can be very one note, very stale, very generic, not really doing that much. But it was the timing, the comedic timing, it's the accent, Piper, no, tsunami, Buddhism, all that memeable stuff that she gave us. Again, from a character, she's not doing, on paper, narratively speaking, there wasn't any change from when we first met her to when we leave the White Lotus. But again, I'm looking at her from an entertainment value, from a comedic value. And also, I don't want to downplay, comedic acting isn't that easy, right? It's easy for these elite actors that we know on the show to play the drama, but to be comedic and have a little bit of nuance in those comedic moments, I really thought Parker Posey brought her A game. And look, man, she made me laugh every single week. So with that being said, I'm going to put her in the Gold Club because, again, she was hilarious.
Okay. I don't even have my lorazepam. I'm going to have to drink myself to sleep.
So next on our list, we have Saxon Ratliff, who Listen, man, he's this season's douchebag, right? He's the Shane of the season. He is this season's Cameron. And out of all those douchebags I just mentioned, he probably is my favorite. For the simple reason that, and this is going to speak to where I'm going to put him on my list, probably the most growth since from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. Now, of course, we can't forget the situation with him and Lachlan, but putting that aside for a second, looking at him from a narrative perspective, a growth perspective, and a story perspective, the douchey, arrogant prick, daddy's boy wants to, be in the shadow of his father with his whole job and all that stuff. But by the time we get to episode, it was like 6 and 7 and 8, a switch in the character. Him and Chelsea, while it wasn't reciprocated romantically, obviously he was more interested in her in that more sexual romantic angle where she was just like, hey, I can help you, bro. Obviously, we're not going to go. She drew a line in the sand, which I respect. And we're going to talk about Chelsea later. But I really enjoyed the arc that we saw him on because he really did change. He started to look at, and particularly Chelsea and women in general, I think, in a different perspective from when we first met the character. And also very similar to who we'll talk about his brother here in a second. He was enlightened, right? He came across a person that we'll talk about that changed him for the better, I think. And I think when he goes back home, he's going to be a completely different person than when he came to Thailand on the White Lotus. So this is going to maybe shock a lot of you all, but for the first time on this list, I'm going to put him in the S class because, again, I think he has the most growth from when we first met him to when we ended in the season. All right, and last but not least in the Ratliff family, we got the baby boy, and that is the people pleaser himself, and Lachlan Ratliff. Now, of course, to me, in my mind, he fits in that mold. It's a very similar trope, I should say, or a character trope that we've seen in season 1 with Quinn, and of course, Albie in season 2. These boys that are becoming men in a way, kind of in their late teens, early 20s, on this vacation, on this trip, but they're here following the footsteps of, in this case, an older brother, an older sister, their father, and they don't know who they are, right? And that's the biggest journey with Lachlan. He's trying to figure out who he wants to be, kind of allowing himself to be persuaded or to be tugged either which way, right? Whether it was following the footsteps of his brother and fulfill those shoes that his brother put him in, trying to be the man that his brother wants him to be, or and obviously got the rejection after he was trying to please his brother. Which brings us to Piper trying to go down the path of religion and searching for meditation and Zenness and the Buddhism and all this stuff that he found, which actually I think he ended up leaning more towards the Piper route and kind of leaving his darkness aside by the end of the season. And I like the actor a lot. I like the ending because emotionally speaking, when it was led to believe, spoiler, when you thought that Lachlan was going to die drinking the poison, there was a bit of me that felt that innocence, that loss of innocence. The one person in the family that didn't need money, as we saw Timothy testing every member of the family to see if they can survive. And he said, yeah, I can do it. And I believe he could. With that being said, not as interesting to me as his older brother, but definitely, up there with his mom. I think Lachlan is a really interesting character that had, when we first saw him and that whole see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, and seeing the dichotomy of both of the brothers being more enlightened than Piper. It's a really interesting character. Again, pleasing family members aside, I thought Lachlan had a really good arc this season. So moving on to the power couple of the season, starting off with Rick, who, I spoke about Carrie Coon earlier, and she was one of my exciting character actors that I was excited to see this new season. And Walton Goggins is just the epitome, the poster child of character actors. He's such a great actor across the board, all the different shows. I can go on and on about my fandom of him, but I really love Walton. I hate Rick. But I hate him. It's one of those things you love to hate. The character that does challenge you as a viewer because he's doing the dumbest stuff. I can have a laundry list of the dumb stuff he did. The lack of recon of Shatala and Jim, and giving terrible intel to Frank, who we'll talk about later, and the decision to go back to the hotel after doing what he did to Jim. It's just getting Chelsea involved. It's just being a terrible boyfriend, being a terrible friend. The list goes on. But I love that. I love a character that can challenge you, that you just, they're not black and white. And that's the thing I love about this show is all these morally gray characters. And Rick is definitely up there as far as of all time in the show. There's really hasn't been a character like him that I can think of as being so self-destructive and allowing his trauma and his anger and his resentment and all that stuff to weigh him down and ultimately get himself killed, as well as the person we'll talk about here in a second. So Walton, again, a little bit biased. I'm a big fan of his. And again, I hate the decisions. I hate the character, but it's a great character at the end of the day. Not quite elite, but I'm going to put him in an A class. You messed up what you did to who we'll talk about in a second, but I thought Walton did a great job as Rick. Again, a character you love to hate. Now, on the opposite of a character you love to hate, we're talking about Chelsea, man. First off, again, this is just showing my fandom. Another actor that I like. I've been following Aimee since Sex Education. Very good in that show. Very great in this show. I think this show is going to put her on the map, more so than Sex Education, because that show started to get bad after the last 2 seasons, but that's another conversation for another day. But I thought Chelsea, we all might know a Chelsea in our personal lives, someone that puts others first. In this case, it was Rick. And again, there were so many moments in the season. I'm going to give you back your joy, rather if it kills me. The whole being held at gunpoint, the robbery, being bitten by the snake, bad things comes in threes. Like, it was telling us this the whole season that she was going to be the one to die, unfortunately. And when it came to it, I said it in my breakdown. I'm going to say it again. Rick and Chelsea, to me, is the most tragic couple of any of the seasons so far. And her death really kind of got me emotionally, because she was such a good person at heart, even though she made a terrible decision with staying with Rick, right? And doing the whole quote unquote, I can fix him type of mindset. And it didn't work out for her. But throughout the season, she stayed loyal to him. She didn't fall for Saxon's games as far as trying to get her to hook up with him. She did kiss Chloe, but no harm, no foul. A couple drinks there, but either way, I thought Chelsea was great. I thought Aimee was great in the role. The emotional death so far was in all 3 seasons was hers, and I thought she was elite. So that's why I'm going to put her in the elite club. Chelsea, R.I.P. Now we're getting back to the bottom of the barrel, the terrible of the terrible people, the con artist of all con artists, and that is Gary/Greg, who we know came from season 1, transferred into season 2, and of course he followed it up in season 3. Now the question is, before I get more into the character, do you want more Gary Gregg? Is his story wrapped up in the 3rd season with him and his 3rd wheel with Chloe? Are they going to live happily ever after? He's just going to get away with potentially setting up the death of his wife. Who knows? But neither here nor there. I'm a big fan of the actor. Back in the day, Martin's one of my all-time favorite shows. He was on Martin. Of course, I know he's in other movies and shows. He's a great actor. And he plays creepy, weird, strange very well in this show. I really enjoy the performance. This is the most that we've gotten from him as far as the layers, dimensions, the complexities of Greg/Gary. He did give Belinda $5 million. So if you go back and watch my breakdown, I thought it was just a cameo. I thought it was just like a little wink, wink, nod, nod. Like, this is going to be the connective tissues to tie in all 3 seasons, besides obviously Belinda. But no, he was one of the most important characters in the show. Not only propelled in the story and kind of made her story more interesting, he had his own little arc, his own little fantasy, I should say. And we all know what that fantasy is. And it looked like his dreams will come true. I'm gonna put him in the B club, the silver club. Gary, I hate you, but thank you for giving Belinda that money that she can open her shop finally. All right, now we're getting into some of the employees here of the White Lotus, and starting off with Mook, actress Lisa. I didn't know her prior to the show, but obviously now doing research, I know how big of a megastar she is worldwide, and the group she's in, her solo career, all that stuff's great. Seeing the interviews, thought she has so much charisma, so much charm. I can understand why people love her. But on this show, I thought Mook was probably the most nothing with the performance. I thought she was very charming. I like her screen presence. I thought she did really good. But narratively speaking, she's one of the few characters in this show, and there's a couple more that we'll talk about later as far as supporting characters that didn't really work for me because I wanted more from her. One of those characters that just didn't really work for me. So again, where I'm going to put them is no disrespect to the acting, the performance. I'm more so, and this is more of a Mike White issue. He didn't write her that well, didn't give her much to do. So unfortunately, get her out of here. She is our first D character, free trial, didn't really move the needle. Again, I can understand the idea of the character, but it's just the execution that didn't work for me at the end of the day. Which, speaking of execution, the executor himself is Guy Talk, another character who was very charming, great screen presence. I was not familiar with the actor prior to the show, and I thought he did a really good job, even though very similar to Mook, very underwritten, and just as kind of a combo pack. Mook and Guy Talk was just kind of every single week. I'm like, okay, well, are we gonna do something? He discovers the Russians, did the robbery. Okay, are we gonna? It just never really went anywhere. Now, Guy Talk more so than Mook, obviously, because she served his story more than he served hers. But it's the moral of his story is the corruption and the pleasuring of others, kind of similar to a Lachlan, where he's trying to put others and their feelings and their kind of thoughts on him and kind of molding him to a different person, because he had, very similar to Belinda, who I don't want to say give her soul for the money, but he kind of sold his soul and killed Rick and became the bodyguard of Shatala and got the girl at the end of the day, but at what cost? Well, he killed someone at the cost, so his soul is corrupted. But neither here nor there. I wanted more from Guy Talk and Mook, but again, I could understand the moral of the character, so I won't put him as low as Mook, but I will put him, a step up in that C class. I wanted more from both of them, but in particularly Guy Talk. I just wish that there was more dynamic going on with that character. All right, so sticking on with the employees of the White Lotus, we have Valentine, who didn't another character. I won't spend too much time on him. Didn't really do much for me. Again, I thought that he might have had a little bit more to do than what was given to him. Again, we know the whole robbery, which didn't really add up to much besides obviously Guy Talk's story. But, hey, he was there to kind of cause a little bit of a rift with our lady crew. But outside of that, I mean, sorry, Valentine didn't really do much for me. But moving on to another nice guy, that's Peng Shai, kind of replacing the Belinda of this season from season 1, where he's someone that kind of got caught up and fallen for this new person that's new to the island, that's new to Thailand, and got all wrapped up in the emotions and wanted to open up a business with Belinda. Outside of Belinda, Peng Shai had literally nothing to do, didn't really offer anything besides being almost a reflection of Belinda from season 1. But again, I'm going to give him a little bit of a boost because he was at least a good guy. He had good intentions. So I'm going to put him in that C class. All right, moving on to the supervisor of this season's White Lotus. Of course, we remember Armand, who's the best of the best. We have Valentine in season 2, who was a really fun character, and I liked her arc. Fabian, what are you doing here, man? What was the point of Fabian, y'all? Like, he literally had nothing to do. Fabian could have went without him, didn't need him. I wish we could have gotten more from him, but unfortunately, we got him singing and never got the singing except for 2 seconds of that and him screaming at the end. So Fabian, I'm sorry, man. You got to go. All right. Next we have Chloe, who is someone that kind of shook the tree in this season, right? Being Chelsea's friend and obviously being the girlfriend of Gary and having her kind of situation going on with the two brothers. Obviously outside of that, nothing more than that. I mean, shout out to her from coming from the bottom to where she is now and having a yacht and having a lover that's interested in having his fantasies come true. And she made the fantasy come true. So I thought Chloe was a fine character. Again, she kind of fits in that mold of characters we've seen from previous seasons. The lust of the season, right? The sexual nature that comes with being on vacation with characters that kind of, fall into temptation. So I like the actress. She has some bomb outfits, eye candy for every single week that she was on screen. So again, I'm gonna put her in that bronze club. So moving on to Pam. I like Pam. I thought she was gonna be this season's like Armand. She was gonna be kind of clapping back at the guests, but we only got 3 scenes with her, and all those scenes were great. But I just wish that we would have got more with Pam. But unfortunately, I'm not gonna. I'll put her at the bottom because we didn't get, and it's not her fault, but she just didn't do anything, right? Besides just be there. But shout out to Pam, even though you're at the bottom. You know what? Let's make a change. Let's put her here. I'm gonna put her up just because I like some of her little one-liners she gave to Timmy throughout the season. All right, y'all. Listen, the man he literally popped up in the last half of the season. I'm a big Sam Rockwell fan, so I will put that out there. But Frank has to be. Every season we always have these like kind of pop in characters that kind of pop in, kind of shake things up, have memorable moments. But there's nothing more memorable than what Frank did in that monologue in episode 6, maybe the full moon party episode. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
And watch the whole thing. I'd look in her eyes while some guy was looking at me, and I'd think, I am her.
Hey, we all have our Achilles heel, man,
One of my favorite moments of television this year, and probably top 3 moments of the entire series of this show. I'm not going to waste any more time. You know what it is. Elite. Frank, you are the man or woman. Moving on to the man, and that's Zion, a character who was one of the first characters we saw at the beginning of the season with the opening credits. Right away, I knew that he was going to be Belinda's son, and I wish we could have got more because him and his mother's dynamic relationship was so much fun. I love the conversations they've had, and the scene with him negotiating the deal to $5 million was so great. Zion, such a great character, like such a surprising character. I mean, let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. Zion, that is the dude. That is a great son, great character, and he did a really good job in this season. All right, moving on to Scott Glenn, aka Stick, from my Daredevil fans out there, but a piece of you know what in this show. Jim was a character that we've obviously the show was building up to us since the very beginning. And when we first met him, seeing that uneasiness between him and his son, Rick, and then obviously we know what goes down in the final episode with him being shot. Jim is an interesting character because he kind of plays into the idea of Rick's, the anger, the trauma, he could have prevented all this stuff from happening if he would have just told Rick he was his dad when they were in his office. And he could have told him when he was talking stuff about his mom, right? And he had to be evil and spiteful. And I get it. I mean, the man pushed you. I get it. He pushed him off a chair, so he wanted to get his clap back. But he ended up getting clapped back at the end of the day. So Jim Hollinger, interesting character. Not a lot going on, but obviously his death played into Rick's and Chelsea's death. So again, nothing spectacular, but interesting character nonetheless. Shatala is our next character, and I liked her energy. But outside of maybe the one or two scenes that she shared with Frank when they were watching her old tapes, and the line delivery at the end when she told Rick who Jim really was. But unfortunately, another character to me that kind of had potential. Like, I really thought that Shatala and maybe Jacqueline, if they had the connection, she was a fan of her. She gave her a book, and I thought they were going to maybe cross paths with like a person. Shatala used to be a big star, but now she's kind of faded out of that lifestyle. She's moved on to another part of her life. So I thought there was going to be like a bonding between the two characters, but not really. Not at all, actually. So yeah, Shatala, fun moments. You know, I like the actress, I like the energy, I like the screen presence, but didn't really do that much. But I'm not going to put her at the bottom. But shout out to Shatala. All right, next we have the Mook, of the main Mook of the monastery. Didn't do a lot, obviously, but listen, I'm going to put him in this C class because there were some quotes that really kind of was like, ooh, maybe I need to become a Buddhist. No, I really like the line delivery. I like the calm, the zenness, the stuff that he was saying was pretty impactful for the characters, but also to me too. I was like, those are some really, really good bars that he was dropping in this season. All right, as we come down to our final three, we have Vlad. Listen, I'm just gonna get this straight to the point. You know, I'm gonna put Vlad a little bit higher than his other friends. He was funny. I'm gonna put him a little bit higher than Valentine. Alexi didn't really do it for me. You know, didn't really have much to do. Obviously, I'm not going to blame the actors. They weren't written to have a lot of screen time, but he didn't really move the needle for me. And then last but not least, Amarina, who, if she would have just took 10 to 15 minutes to talk to Rick, maybe everything didn't happen. But again, as the title of the last episode said, everything was bound to happen, regardless if she probably talked to Rick or not. But I liked her. I liked the scene that she had with Rick before Rick went off to Bangkok. That was a really nice moment. So I'm going to put Amarina here on this list. All right, so before I share with you all who I would like to see maybe continue their story in season 4, let me go ahead and just order these up as far as how I would rank these characters. I'm gonna go ahead and do you, and Chelsea's number 1 for me in that elite club, followed by my guy Frank, and then Saxon in the A club. I'm gonna switch Belinda and Lori. I'm gonna keep Belinda where she is. I'm going to have her followed up by her. I'm going to keep Victoria there, then her son. Then I'm going to go Rick and then Lachlan. In our Silver Club, I'm actually pretty content where everyone's at in that group. Our C Club, that's obviously the most characters I had in there, which was just, almost at the bottom, but not quite there. Lori, Piper, is anyone more interested? Piper's cool. I'm going to probably leave no, I'm gonna actually I'm not gonna go disrespect Guy Talk like that. I'm gonna move Guy Talk to the number 1 of that club because he had the most to do in this club. Then Lori, then Piper, Punk Shy. Yeah, he's good where he's at. Chloe's good where she's at. Pam, I'm gonna move you above your husband. The Mook, he's good. I'm gonna use you here. So I'm good where they're at there. Then on our bottom list, I'm gonna leave Mook where she is because I like her the most out of all these characters. Valentine had the most to do. Yeah, I'm sorry, Fabian. You got to go at the bottom. Like, just didn't do anything for me at all. So before we call this the end of the video, as far as the one character I would be really interested to see more from in a season 4. I don't think any of the family members from the Ratliff family is coming back. Even though if there were a family member I'd like to see come back, it would be Saxon. The women group, I think they're done, even though I have fun with them. I think Belinda and Greg and Gary, there is a chance that we see more of them, and we could see season 4 with Belinda opening up her shop, being like a competitor to the White Lotus, but that's up in the air. Zion would be cool to see. Frank and Belinda and her son, I'm gonna go with Frank, y'all. I mean, even though I would like to see Belinda's shop be open, and who just to say that we might see that, but I would love to see Sam Rockwell come back and have like a crazy episode with Frank. So I'm just thinking about it. Realistically speaking, it's probably going to be Belinda and maybe her son that come back for season 4. I would be interested to see their story move on and see if that blood money has any interference on like her success, right? If it catches up to her. So let me know in the comments. Number one, how would you rank all the characters based on my tier list from the S all the way to the D? And then let me know who would you like to see return in season 4? That's obviously alive. And last but not least, one more thing I want to put in there is cast. How would we rank this cast amongst the other 3? I think I enjoyed this cast and the acting and the stories more than I did in season 1. So I'm going to put them above that. And then 2 is I love season 2 so much in the cast, but I might give the slight edge to season 3 because emotionally speaking, Rick and Chelsea, they were my favorite couple as far as like they got me emotionally with her death. So do I say season 3 is the best cast? I might have to lean that way, but maybe I need more time to think about that. But let me know your favorite cast. Again, let me know where you would rate these characters and who you would like to see out of this cast come back for season 4. With all that said, y'all, that is going to be the end of my ranking of the season 3's characters of the White Lotus. If you enjoyed this, hit the thumbs up, share your thoughts. Also share this video, comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And let me know if you want to see more of these after we do these type of breakdowns after week and we come to the end. If you will want me to do more of these, I could have did one for Severance or, Invincible. So let me know if that's something you all would like to see in the future. With all that being said, thank you all for watching this video. Don't forget, you all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll catch you all on the next breakdown.